Welcome to Annexed Dinner Table Reviews. I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Devin.
And today we're going to be looking at the search for Planet X. It has you taking in clues and searching through the solar system to try to identify Planet X. Very much like a logic puzzle that is just round instead of like that squarish rectangle thing. I absolutely adore this game. It is one of my favorite games ever.
Yeah, I'd say overall our games typically go Cassandra wins most of the time, Devin wins most of the time. This is one of those games where it's a pretty even split between who's going to win. It's a nice game that fits within our balance.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it was very unique in terms of how you play it. Devin likes to call it Clue on crack. But unlike Clue, you have an app that's like giving you all this information, and so if you make a guess, you're not going to be like disqualified from continuing the search. You just kind of lose a turn. So I think that's a nice little bonus, and then it's that getting everything from the app is also really nice, and it makes for an interesting game where you need to interact with players and know what they're doing, but you're looking at your little map and you're looking at your phone to give you answers for things, and then you forget and you miss out on information that you really wanted to know.
Yeah, at first I didn't think I was going to like the app, but it's really nice that it's almost like a Dungeon Master with Virtual Dungeon Master. So everyone can play, no one has to, and you have that ability to jump right back in, as opposed to like in a Clue-like game where once you check and you're wrong, you're out of the game. So it's really nice in that regard, yeah.
Yeah, and then another cool mechanic that I really enjoyed was these little theory tokens. Every 3 moves of the planet, you can place theories, and they're then move down this tracker and then flip over, and you get to see if they're right. And the theories are what gives you points in the end of the game, but it's that balance again of, do I want to give information? Because if I get it right, I've now told the entire table that, a comet is there. Or do I want to keep that to myself but lose out on those points? So it's a huge balance game of figuring out what's there and then deciding if you want to tell people what's there.
And you ultimately have to, because there's a matter of, you can totally find Planet X, but if you don't have enough theories on the board, someone else can win. Finding Planet X does not guarantee victory, so you have to be able to play those theories and get those extra points in order to be a contender in this game. Yeah, it's really, and sometimes you just got to put that dwarf planet theory down and say, okay, it's time for everyone to know where the dwarf planet's at.
Yeah, but if you're wrong, there's actually some consequences where, if you're wrong with that dwarf planet, there's only one dwarf planet in a standard game, and once you place it, you can't ever place it again, even if you're wrong. So that's 4 points that just go away, that you have no more access to. So there's quite a bit of really wanting to make sure you've got them, especially with, the dwarf planets and those gas clouds that are worth 4 points each. That's a lot of points when you're talking about, I think one of our highest games was 25 points, and it was woo.
Yeah, I also really like the way the time works in this game. Finding different information, getting different clues are valued at different amounts, and so it's not just a turn-by-turn basis. It's sometimes you're getting a lot more information on one clue than somebody else, so that's going to put you way ahead, and they can take multiple turns if they're behind you by that much.
Yeah. And I thought that it was interesting because when I first read the rules, I was like, turns are based on like where you are on this time tracker, the 1 through 12, which is also your sections. And I'm like, what happens if people lap you? How are you not going to get lapped? And there is pretty much no way to get lapped because like you can, if you get super far ahead and then, Devin does something that isn't as big in terms of movement points, he gets to go again until he passes me in the track. And then you also have how much of the sky is visible with this turning marker. So you could know everything in that 6 sectors. And you're just like, okay, but I need to go over there. And it's like, well.
Yeah, and that becomes a really thing. If you're doing a survey and you miss your window to find out that information, you have to wait the full rotation till you can do that survey again. You really have to time that stuff out and plan ahead.
Yeah. And then they also have these trackers to help you, which are really nice. They give you quite a few of them. I was a little bit like leery because consumables and am I going to have to, buy new ones, which always kind of, it's like, I make the initial investment and then 3 months later I'm having to make another investment into the game. But like this is going to last way more than 3 months.
Yeah, and we've talked about, running up to a local coffee shop and getting them laminated because there's no reason why you can't just laminate one of them and then use dry erase marker.
Yeah. But there's 4 different ones in here based on the season that you're sitting in front of. And that's really nice because the board is circular and it changes what the map looks like. So if you're sitting at winter, the top is going to be that 6-7 instead of if you're at summer where it's 12-1. So what you're looking at makes a lot more sense to you than just, kind of having to rotate your board and be like, wait, what's happening? I don't know.
Yeah, speaking as the guy who's usually sitting on the wrong end of the board, it's really nice that there is no wrong end of the board here. Based on where you're sitting, you're always viewing it in the right orientation. It's really nice.
Yeah. And then they also had, because you don't want to tell people, these nice little player boards keeping things.
Screens?
Player screens. I really should just tape that on the wall because I can never remember. That tells you pretty much everything that you need to know how to play this game. It tells you, how many of each thing are there. If there's a logic rule that's pre-associated with it, it's here. There's a card that slots in here if you play the expert board, which just gives you 6 more sectors to work with to change, dwarf planets and this and empty sectors. And so there's never any really needing to look at that rule book because it's all sitting in front of you, which is great when you're like, wait, how many of this are there? Or what was that rule?
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, I'd also say with the different key codes and different positions, the replayability is pretty high. I think the limiting factor is that massive deck of consumables there. And the fact that there's an advanced mode means that when you get kind of tired of the standard version, you just flip it over and it becomes way more difficult. There's also scalability within the app. So if you're playing with younger people or there's a handicap abilities where it limits the number of clues you get at the very beginning that you start with, so you can play with different ability levels in the same game.
Yeah. So there's like 4 different modes within like the standard, and then again with that expert mode, which does really allow for having a variety of different play levels, which is great. So, your kid isn't going to be excluded because it's a logic game. They just get more information and you get less information and you're still working out the same puzzle, which I thought was really brilliant because no one wants to get left behind when playing a game.
Yeah.
But moving to age range, I think because of that scalability in the app, you can play pretty young. If everyone has their own device, I would say 8. If you play like a beginner and are starting to work on those like intro logic things, you could play at 8. I would say good chance of like winning would be closer to 10, but
I would put it much higher than that. I would say probably to play this you need to be in the 11 to 12-year-old range, and to win this you probably need to be in the 14 to 15-year-old range. But that's primarily because it's a information and logic game where you are collecting clues. Helping someone younger becomes a lot more difficult without you observing what they've observed. So you can't lean over and say, oh, and now I've seen half of what you've documented there. Yeah.
I can definitely see that being a true statement, and you are probably right. You work with a lot more children and young children than I do with that age range.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend this game. My favorite game right this second. So that's what we thought of the search for Planet X. If you like this video, hit that button and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications of our newest videos.